Hey guys, welcome back to another summary of an October country story. This one is called The Jar. It's another spooky, creepy carnival story. Once again, Bradbury goes back to the well on certain themes as well as elements in these different tales. In this case, the main character is a guy named Charlie. He goes to the carnival, he sees this attraction. It's a jar with something creepy, gross inside. There are some visceral descriptions about what it is, but you're never given to understand exactly what it is. And as an extra cherry on top, whatever anybody sees inside, like it's different for every person. It's a creature to that effect. Charlie becomes obsessed with it. He buys it off of the guy, and he brings it to his house, and like puts it up in the center of his living room. He calls it the emperor of the living room, and people from the neighborhood start coming around to just stare at the weird, creepy thing in the jar, and they're all having like a pseudo religious experience with it. But the more that they hyperfixate and focus on this thing, the more they see things from their past that haunt them. Like one guy who did something really messed up, like he drowned a whole litter of cats when he was a kid. Another woman, she took her kid on a walk in a swamp, and it's kind of implied that like she ditched him there. It's like holy crap! And this is when her kid was really really young, and Charlie's wife looks into it, and she says the thing looks like Charlie, and so whether it's like explicitly things that you're ashamed of or embarrassed of, or things that you're disgusted by, like everybody has a different response to this thing in the jar, and it's not always it's just negative. It's gross. It also turns out that Charlie's wife likes to get around, and he's so like just incensed by this that between that and like his fixation with the jar and shifts in his personality, um, he decides to delete his wife and her whoring ways, as it's said, and he gets rid of her because of the thing in the jar. If the carnival is the consistent element with other October country stories and other haunted stories that he likes to tell, the consistent theme is that the more you fixate on evil, the more you are consumed by it. And I think it's a dark mirror reflection of just the principle of faith. I mean, you look at committed religious people, and they try to adhere and focus intensely on positive principles, and that has a manifest result in their life. I feel like Bradbury is looking at the flip side of that, with the jar being a physical manifestation of this fixation. It just has the added benefit of turning into something vile depending on who's looking at it and motivating you to do an evil thing. In this case, Charlie gets rid of his adulterous wife permanently. The next story in here, it's another short one. They're all short. It's called The Lake. And while this one isn't necessarily a carnival thing, he makes some allusions to carnival elements. He talks about like carnival music being the music of summer ending. The main character is a kid named Harold who likes to swim in this lake that's out behind a summer house that his family has. And when he was 12, he and his best friend, a girl named Tally, used to swim at the lake all the time, but she drowned out there. And while he's swimming in the lake later on, like he's always calling out to her in that way that childlike innocence might compel you to, hoping that she'll come back, that the lake will give her back. But she was taken from him, and he's heartbroken by that. Like it's an examination of not just the childlike love of summer, but just the ability of a child to fall in love. If you ever have one of those innocent childhood, not crushes, but like real love on with someone, and he's sad at experiencing loss at a child or in a young age, at a childhood age. Then the story flashes forward to 10 years later. He's in his early 20s. He's married, and he goes and visits his hometown, and he goes back to the lake. And while he's there, a lifeguard finds the body of Tally in the lake and brings her out. And it dredges up all of those feelings. In the true spirit of the October country, it takes something beautiful and twists it into something tragic in this case. Not necessarily macabre so much, but tragic. It wasn't like, oh, she was decayed and whatever. It's like she looked exactly the same way she did coming out of the lake as she did going into it all those years ago. The problem is that, he's married now, and supposedly had put this behind him, but now his friend and his love has come back to haunt him and to take something beautiful and just turn it into something heartbreaking. This is a different beat from other stories in this collection, just because it's not about like trying to scare you with something grotesque or something shocking about human nature. It's heartbreaking. It's tragic. Those are the two words that kept coming back to mind. It was a perversion of the idea of being able to move on. Um, there's an author named Stephen Peck who wrote a story called a Short Stay in Hell. I think it was about 2 hours on audio. It's not very long, page count wise. It was a very unique concept about hell, and it was written by an author of the same faith as I am, also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I thought, like, this is really what good horror, I think, looks like, because it's not just about showing you gross things and trying to shock you with it. It's about presenting a psychological concept that, if it were real, it would be absolutely indomitable and terrifying. And this is that same vein that Ray Bradbury's tapping into here. The idea of not being able to heal from the loss of love. Just terrifying. A world without healing, I think, is much more compelling as a horror concept than a world where there's always some creature hanging out around the corner looking to jump out at you or whatever. This is an example of effective horror, and it's why I, who do not like horror and don't read it as entertainment, still find myself coming back to Ray Bradbury, because his writing is just so much more poetic and ethereal, and I use that word all the time when I'm describing him. He taps into emotional concepts and constructs that I don't think anybody else really does when they're writing like him. And since this has been a short video, I'll go ahead and summarize 3 stories here. The one after the lake is called The Emissary, and it reminded me of The Skeleton, because there was a soft, slow build-up to the end, and then the end is not only abrupt, it's there for you to conclude for yourself what happened. Like, it's pretty clear what happened, but the fact that he doesn't come right out and say it makes it all the more eerie, because like you naturally come to that conclusion, but holy crap. So the main character is a kid named Martin, who he's sick and he's bedridden, and he's got this pet dog that likes to come into his room, and Martin can tell what the outside world is like because of his dog. Like, if it's raining outside, he knows because his dog was wet, or if it's fall, he'll know because his dog comes in and he's got like leaves in his fur, things like that. Well, he's also got a favorite school teacher who, her name escapes me, Miss Height, I think it was. She comes in and like she visits him all the time, and she's another channel to the outside world for Martin. Well, then one day she dies, and Martin has to wrestle with the reality of death and loss and everything. The ending of the story is that the dog goes out to the cemetery and does what dogs do in the dirt. And when he comes back again, like it's not like stated outright explicitly, but it's like, hey, Miss Height gets to pay another visit, gets to come walking around. It's a little bit like Dia de los Muertos, only it's the dog that fetches the cadaver of his teacher, because the dog loves Martin and wants to bring him things from the outside world and knows that Martin loves his teacher. And so you put it together, it's like, oh, holy crap, that's horrifying. Again, you get that element of taking something innocent and turning it into something horrifying. And the dog is just naturally happy and good and interested in the happiness and well-being of his master. The dog doesn't know that he's doing something horrible and grotesque. He's just, oh, hey, you love this thing, let me bring it to you. Whoopsie. um, Dang, I love Ray Bradbury. He knows what he's doing. All right, that's it for now. Since that gets us to 10 minutes here, these are three summaries of the October Country Stories in one video. I don't know how many more are left. I think this brings us to 7. So yeah, 20. There's 15 of these left. I think I'll do them like this instead of trying to cover them individually because um, there's not much to say to make a full video out of one single story all the time. Anyway, drive safe. See you out there.